Super Rugby AU transfers for 2021. Some teams are pretty stable, and some teams have made pretty substantial changes to their lineup. So much so that I couldn't get the whole lot on the board. But anyway, we'll go through the 5 teams, see who's coming in, who's going out, and yeah, you guys can let me know how you reckon these teams are going to stack up based on some of the talent that has either left or has come in. We'll start with the Brumbies. There's not much doing in terms of like big name signings. They've signed James Tucker, who at 26 years old is a bit of a journeyman, and the only guy that they asked about in the interview with Dan McKellar, the head coach, the other day. He's been with the Chiefs Blues. He's been with Zebra in Italy. He's been in Japan. The guy's already been around the block. Apparently, he's had quite a few injuries. Lock, loose forward. He's hoping, and Dan McKellar is hoping that he can kind of keep him fit and get him really into the game. The rest of the additions seem to be mostly like promotions from the academy, so it's not a bad thing. That's the way the Crusaders roll. They generally don't just sign in big name players. They tend to bring in their own talent, so we'll see how that goes. Guys going out. Murray Douglas has gone to Japan. Blake Eneva, I don't even know if he played in Super Rugby. I think he'd already gone. He's gone to Leicester. Lockie McCaffrey's gone to Japan. Joe Powell is one of the few ones that switches to another traditional rival Super Rugby AU team in terms of going to the Rebels. But Kurandrani and Tony Pulu have also gone to the Force. So they have lost 3 of their players to rival teams, which is something which always maybe burns a little bit more. But if they wanted to retain them, I'm sure they maybe would have been able to. They've got 19 guys in their squad who are aged 23 or younger. So it's a relatively young Brumbies squad. They've obviously still got some experienced guys, but I mean, Lolosio, Kunzel, these guys are going to run the show, and they are pretty young guys. I mean, they've still got Sio, they've still got Faenga, Alalatoa, Slipper, so they've still got the right experience in the right places, but yeah, it's a younger looking Brumbies squad than last season anyway. For the Rebels, they've brought in Ed Craig from the Reds, who I don't really remember seeing. I think he might have played a couple of games. He's a hooker. He's 24 years old. So he's probably at that moment where he needs to really crack on and get some proper minutes at this level. They've brought in Steve Cummins, who I don't really remember, but he's another one who's a bit of a journeyman, 28 years old. He's been with Scarlets in the Pro 14. He's been with Pau over in France. He apparently played 15 games for the Rebels in 2017 and a couple of games in 2016 and 2015, but I honestly don't remember him, but he's obviously got a bit more experience under his belt. So he'll be looking to add something to the locks and the Rebels. They've also got Joe Powell in, as I mentioned, from the Brumbies. So he's going to be taking essentially the spot of Lowrens, who's headed off to Japan. Bit of a different style. Lowrens was like a big, bulky number 9, whereas our man Powell is probably not quite so much in the way of like big number 9s. They've also got in Jarrell Skelton, who I hadn't heard of, but he's a former Sevens man. He's cousins of Big Will. He's only like 1.91 m, so he's a short Skelton in the scheme of things, but that's still a pretty big unit. So in terms of other guys out, Anarau Rangi has headed off to Japan. That's a pity because he seemed to be kind of maybe on the borderline of making an Australian spot at some point when they were injured in a few hookers, but it never really panned out for him. Tom English and Bill Meeks have both headed overseas, Japan and the MLR respectively. Andrew Callaway has gone to Japan, Luke Jones has gone to France, Angus Cottrell has gone to the MLR, and Matt Phillip I think is on a short-term deal over in France, but there's essentially quite a lot of movement in that Rebel squad. Obviously, it's not an exhaustive list of the guys in as well. They've got some academy guys coming through as well as the guys I've mentioned. So yeah, those are some of the big names. For the Rebels, there's only really one big name in and one big name out, because all the big names that went out left before the AU season kicked off, right, in terms of Hawkins and who was that lock? Rodder and Lucas, those guys all left. Henry Spate got an early termination to his contract. Those guys all left pretty early, but Craig, as I mentioned, Ed Craig has gone to the Rebels. He's the one guy I wasn't that familiar with, but the big signing, the only signing anyone's talking about for the Reds is Suliasi Vunivalu, who is a league convert. I don't watch enough league to know anything about him, but he plays for the Melbourne Storm, who's a pretty bloody good team. And the highlights reel I watched of him is essentially 90%, maybe not 90%, 70% him catching high cross kicks. So the guy, I know Israel Folau came over from league and he was pretty bloody good in the air. Vunivalu may be another that kind of style player. He's a big guy. I did see one clip of him like actually break into open field and, you know, get some proper speed up. So he seems to have a bit of gas as well, but it was hard to say from just that one highlight. But yeah, man, the guy seems to be dangerous. He was signed like a year ago and he's finally kind of coming through because his contract was going to end in 2020. So yeah, they've had to wait for a long time, but they signed him early and now is the time. Remember, Dave Rennie called him up for the Wallabies. I almost said All Blacks. Yeah, because he really rates him. So he never got a game, but yeah, he's obviously on the radar at that elite Wallabies level. For the Tars, they've also brought in some experience. Dave Parecki, again, I don't remember him, returned to New South Wales. I think he played a couple of games. He spent quite a few years over in England. He's another hooker, obviously, with Damien Fitzpatrick retiring there. Short, maybe one guy in that position. 28 years old, so a bit of a veteran. Sam Wykes, who used to play more in this colour than in New South Wales colours. The lock, he's been over in Japan. He returns to play for the Tars. Jack Wetton is another lock, a bit of a journeyman as well. I keep saying bloody journeyman, but honestly, some of these guys have played for a lot of teams. Wetton, did I write what teams he's played for? He's played, I think, for the Brumbies. He has played for the... was he with the Highlanders in Super Rugby? Aotearoa, he's now with the Tars. I think he's been over in Europe. Like, a guy's been everywhere. He's nearing 30 as well. So, be interesting to see if he can get kind of a stable team. And maybe the most exciting or risky signing is Izzy Parise, who comes back into rugby union. Remember, this guy was, along with like Jordan Pataya, like one of those guys that Brad Thorne unearthed at the Reds and was going to be the next big thing. And then after his first kind of breakout year, he immediately signs with the Brisbane Broncos to go over to rugby league, which was pretty frustrating seeing as how talented he seemed to be. But that just was what it was, right? So he then got into trouble with some drugs, and I think he went over to France to play union. So now he's back in Australia. He's back playing union. So I guess keep his nose clean, keep out of trouble. And he is a really exciting prospect. So let's hope he does the right things on the field. 23 years old, so maybe he's matured a bit because he did break onto the scene pretty young. Guys who've gone out, Tom Robertson's gone to the Force, Ned Hannigan's off to Japan, Jed Holloway Japan, Simmons and Staniforth have both gone to Europe, Hooper's on his sabbatical in Japan. Mac Mason, it's a pity to see him go, but he's gone to the MLR. He's a guy that just looked a bit out of depth at Super Rugby level, which was pretty unfortunate. Never quite made the step up. Cam Clark's also gone to the MLR, so there seems to be a little bit of a leadership void. But as I said, they have signed a few veterans in their lineup, so it's not like they've brought in all the young guys. So maybe those guys can help step up to the plate. And lastly, it's the Force. Man, the Force have been busy. They have missed out on Montoya from the Jaguares, which is a pity because he was in absolute beastly form during the Rugby Championship, but they've certainly made up for it with a few other Argentinians. They've got Santiago Medrano, the prop. They've got Thomas Lozana, the loose forward. Thomas Kubeli, the number 9, and Domingo Miotti, the number 10. So yeah, they've certainly snapped up a few of the guys off contract from the Jaguares. They've also brought in Robertson from the Waratahs, like I mentioned. Kurandrani from the Brumbies. Pulu from the Brumbies. Macaulay's come in from the Tars. Rob Carney has come over from Leinster. Jake McIntyre's back in Australia to play for them. So man, they have made some serious signings. Admittedly, a few of these guys are getting like towards 30 or the wrong side of 30. Like Carney, Kurandrani I think is 29. Kubali's certainly in his 30s. Pulu I think might be in his 30s as well. So they've signed a few senior guys. It'll be interesting to see how you get all these guys to gel. Like Carney from Leinster and Pulu having been played on the other side of Australia plus in the Chiefs. So there's a lot of stuff to forget before these guys can get together. But I mean, Kubeli and Miotti, they should know each other inside out. So there shouldn't be any problem getting those guys on the same page. On the way out, Stowers, Frisbee, Cowan. I've heard rumours they're going to sign Jake Ball, but I haven't seen that confirmed as yet. I also should have mentioned, likewise, I've seen rumours that Brandon Paenga-Amosa is going to be on his way out of the Reds maybe at the end of 2021. That's what they keep saying, that he's going to go to Montpellier, but I haven't seen it confirmed. I've just seen it kind of speculated About, but I think he's under contract with the Reds for this 2021 season anyway. But yeah, that's the Super Rugby AU transfers. Like I mentioned, there's a few young guys coming through, some guys back in Australia after a bit of time overseas, quite a few journeymen. I'm just going to say that word again because apparently I like it quite a lot. But yeah, a few guys who never quite made it, like Meeks, English, Rangi, like these guys who couldn't quite make it at the international level, but did their time in Super Rugby. But McCaffrey can be included in that lot as well. But anyway, you guys let me know your thoughts. Which Super Rugby AU team do you think is looking the strongest based on this? The Reds seem to be maybe the most stable of the lot. But anyway, you guys take care, and I will talk to you guys again soon. See you later.